Welcome to this week's Technicians Around the Table. As we hinted at in last week's Technicians Around the Table, we are going to talk about the Engine Idle Temperature Management System, or in an acronyms, EITMS. We kind of hinted on it last week, had a couple of questions about it, so we're going to get into a little bit more depth this time, maybe even do a little demo video if we can get the bike to cooperate. So take it away.
So essentially your EITMS, what it's doing is, in case you're in stop and go traffic, the ambient temperature's a little warm outside, it's going to prevent you from overheating your bike. Essentially it's going to shut down your rear cylinder, fuel and spark to the rear cylinder to essentially let it act as just an air pump to help keep the motor cool on a hot day. There are a few parameters that it has to meet. First, it's got to be at idle. It's got to be below 1 mile an hour, the bike moving, and below 1200 RPM. And then after that, one of the following prerequisites must be met. Either the engine temperature is above a preset value, or the ambient air temperature is above a preset value. If it's a twin-cooled bike, also the coolant temperature sensor is going to be above also a preset value for it all to turn on. And once all those are met, it activates and turns that rear cylinder off.
And we printed out a couple of our service bulletins and brought a service manual and things like that to see if we could give you guys some more specific information, but it's pretty vague, it's pretty broad, and it changes based on Harley-Davidson's update of their ECM calibrations. Nowadays, obviously, just like your iPhones, we have the capability to download these things. So as riders would have concerns about an issue, Harley-Davidson can go in and change those and give updates that are, if it's based on a stock calibration, that are free to recalibrate your motorcycle to try to keep it to where it's running as best as they think it possibly can at that moment. So that's why some of these service bulletins, as Matt was kind of reciting there, says above a preset value. I think early on, when the EITMS started to rely on the ambient air temperature sensor, I remember reading somewhere in a technical forum or an early service bulletin, it was somewhere around 95 degrees that it would come on. So, pretty much any time on a hot Florida day in the summertime, that EITMS will be enabled and potentially active if you come to a stop, just based on the air temperature alone. We did a short little demo video to show you how to use it, because a lot of people don't realize when they buy their motorcycles that it's there, and we get people come in and say, I'll be riding along and my motorcycle will start running on one cylinder, and it hasn't been the owner's manual hasn't been gone over with them well enough, and the salesman hasn't presented to them all the features of the motorcycle, so they don't realize this is there. So the other thing they don't realize is how to turn it on and off, and how to if you have a motorcycle with a radio, you can actually watch it turn on and off and watch the little data stream. Because this system is designed to work both with and without a radio, the initial roll off of the throttle may act a little bit different than you expect it to. Because if we didn't have this screen, the system still works. The first roll of the throttle will tell you whether it's active, enabled, or disabled. See, in that case it flashed amber, so it's disabled. If I do it again, it will actually change it. Now it enabled it. Then from there, rolling it forward changes it each and every time.
has something too that as soon as you give it a throttle, that mode kicks out. So it's not something that you're going to ride around with constantly dropping the cylinder. It's only at idle.
As soon as you give it throttle, it turns itself back off and picks up the second cylinder again.
And it's varied over the years. Do you remember what the first year was, John?
I don't, but I remember there was a calibration we had to do to make it available.
I cheated and looked it up. It's 2007. 2007 was the first year for the EITMS, and it has changed year to year over the years. So as we're pretty much, some of this information we've just been giving off about the sensors it looks at are the more recent Rushmore motorcycles. That's what the books with the bulletins we have out in front of us. But it's been around since 2007 in some form or another. Some years you had to get the motorcycle pretty warm before it turned on, and then in this range right here, it would come on, like I said, on above 95 degrees on a hot Florida day. So it changes around, but just so you're aware of that it's there, what it's doing, whether or not you want it on at that moment, and how to use it. Some bikes you have to actually look at the cruise control icon is what's telling you about your EITMS. And of course, if you have a new Boom GT audio, you can actually read it on the radio screen.
Yeah, I think the Rushmore years, you can actually push the infotainment button, and I think it comes up on the infotainment screen.
Yeah, the I, push the information button, the I on the right-hand right turn signal switch, the other direction from the turn signal.
Well, Scott, how does this work if a customer has a coolant system on their bike? The cooling fans, the radiators, do they still have this function?
It's still there on the twin cooled. It just has to meet that one last parameter where coolant temperature is a factor there, not just engine temperature and ambient air temperature, but also coolant temperature. All right, so there's our quick and dirty primer on the EITMS. Hope that helped you guys out, so you know it's there. You can look at it, play with it, turn it on when you want to turn it on, turn it off when you want to turn it off. I personally, if my motorcycle was equipped with it, I would leave it on most of the time. But if I'm certain circumstances where I don't want the motorcycle to drop down to one cylinder, I can just roll the throttle forward and turn it off, and then turn it back on when I get back into a high traffic situation and might think it's useful.
And of course, if you got more questions, you can come in and see our newest tech.
All right. Tell them thank you, John, and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
We just got a letter. We just got a letter. I wonder who it's from.